I've got some amazing watches for you here today, guys. We're going to talk about them. Welcome back to In the Metal. Today's episode is sponsored by our friends over at Squarespace, and we've got some amazing pieces for you. We've got a vintage Omega we've got 3 watches I don't think you've ever really seen, or most of you have never seen. You've got a vintage Omega diver that is just perfect for a whole world of people that are looking for something interesting and not huge at the same time, which those things are often, right? Lack of interesting detail and a presence of enormous case make dive watches hard to buy for a lot of us. So that's an incredible piece. We've got a vintage Longines in pink gold, and pink gold is just really one of my favorite metals. And I think this watch represents a ton of value and interest, and that's great. And then the third piece here is a piece that I really don't think that most of you know about, because no one ever talked about them until fairly recently. And it's not even made by like a watch manufacturer. It's made by a jewelry company that tried their hand at watchmaking that just kind of hit a total home run, and a couple home runs actually. So anyway, today's episode is going to be fantastic. All of these watches and a whole world of other watches are available in the Theo and Harris Watch Shop. So head on over there, maybe open up a new tab right now and poke around while you're listening to today's video. Between our watches and our straps, everything is a family business, and it's all curated by us. So we love helping you guys out. So let's get into this first Omega. It's called the Seamaster 60. This is an oddball. I mean, this is a really unusual, I would say, respective to its price point, I would use the term rare. This is a rare vintage Omega. The model is a Seamaster 60, and it was invented in the late 1960s, kind of for exactly what people like most of us, like me and like Malcolm and like you out there, would want a diver to do. Doesn't really need to go that crazy deep. Like snorkeling and swimming's kind of fine enough, but we want that perfect case size. Right? This is a sports watch. There's no doubt. It's a diver, but it's 37 millimeters, right? Which I think is substantial. There's no doubt, but comparable to other famous divers, it's small, right? The Mariner at 40, a handful of Seamasters at 40, the Speedmaster at 42, right? It's a small sports watch, but it's perfect. And the color, the design overall, the big crown, the wide bevels in the case, everything about this watch was designed and executed so tastefully. I've had this watch for a while, actually. I'll tell you a funny story. When I bought this watch, I actually bought this watch for a client that ultimately never took it. I bought this watch for a client that was an executive at a major NFL sports franchise that, burgundy was a color that made sense for them. And by the time that I was able to find it, which was literally a couple of months, they had been let go. So they no longer wanted the watch. So I kept the watch because I really, really loved it. I love wearing it. I love looking at it. That's just who I am. And now, it's been a couple of years. So I said, okay, it's time to share it with the world, maybe. So this is an incredible Omega Seamaster 60 big crown in burgundy. They also manufactured it in blue, which is stunning. But for me, the burgundy is just so special, right? Who doesn't love a pop of red? But because it's a burgundy and not this bright papal red, it's a little bit easier to wear, a little bit less Mr. Wonderful and more, I don't know, enter tasteful person, I don't know. But this is just a fantastic watch. Incredibly proud to have this in the Theo and Harris Watch Shop. The condition is terrific. The worst you could say about this watch is that there's a little nick here on the crystal that I can probably literally take away with a little bit of polywatch or something like that. So anyway, fantastic watch, absolutely adore it. Hurry over to the Theo and Harris shop and take a look at this, because there's no way this watch will last long. This watch will absolutely fly. The next watch, going into the dress watch category that I want to talk about, is a Longines. Longines is one of my favorite brands of all time. I adore the brand. I love their vintage collection. I love their modern collection. That's very difficult, right? Most brands that reach such heights in the first half of the 20th century either disappeared or now today are a fraction of what they once were, right? But Longines is the opposite, right? In a world where brands only aspire to become more and more expensive and in turn unattainable, in a world where all brands with a secret sauce or a special sauce want to, basically rise up in price to the point where, they kind of lose so much of what made them attractive to begin with, right? Meaning that value proposition. Longines is the opposite. Longines is the exact opposite. Longines continues till today to manufacture incredible modern watches at all different sizes and with really tasteful design, historical roots that are just so respectfully priced. They're priced with respect and consideration to the market and to their community. Really weird. That should be the norm. It's not the norm. Longines is amazing. I went and visited them in Saint-Omer a couple of years ago. Incredible experience. I fell in love with the brand there. I mean, I loved the brand before then, sure. I admired them for their watches, for, their detailing, for their history of chronographs and world times with dual time zones. And, sure, that's a logical reason to love them. But when I visited the archive and I saw the large room of books and which clearly was their attention to detail for their archive, and it's kind of the proof is in the pudding, right? They're not just saying that they love their history and respect their history and tap back into their history. They showed us, which you expect from Patek Philippe. Right? Patek Philippe does that. They have a huge museum of hundreds of millions of dollars in vintage Patek Philippe. Sure, of course, you're Patek Philippe. But that's not the standard. It's not the standard, and generally when brands say things like, we went back into our archives, that's a platitude, it's nonsense. I mean, it's not really, they went on Google, right? I mean, a lot of the time, right? A watch journalist suggested they do this in an article, so they went and did it, right? Longines is so in love with and pays such respect to their past. Anyway, I guess that's all to say that I would love them to reissue something like this because this is phenomenal. Today's episode is sponsored by our friends over at Squarespace. I have been a loyal and enthusiastic Squarespace user and client and now partner for so many years now, 10 years, and I couldn't be happier. Squarespace is the perfect partner for web development, design, and promotion. They have all of the tools you could possibly need. I've been using them, like I said, for 10 years, and their offering just keeps getting better and better, from all of their templates, which are beautiful, not to mention completely functional, to their SEO tools, their fluid engine system, which allows you to drag and drop different elements from your site and rearrange and make it personal and functional for you, to their invoicing systems, their buy now, pay later, their flexible payment systems. Squarespace does not stop. So I don't only recommend you go take a look at Squarespace if you're new and want to build a site. Also, if you already have a website for your company, still, I recommend take a little while, make an account, poke around the site, and see if Squarespace can deliver for you in a way that is better than what you're currently getting. And I can almost guarantee that's the case. That's been my experience. Nobody comes close to Squarespace. So for all of you folks out there that are looking for a little bit better websites, go ahead and make your account. Go to squarespace.com/Theo Harris for 10% off your first website or domain. The link is down below. I couldn't possibly recommend you head on over to Squarespace more. This is a vintage pink gold Longines with beautiful sword hands with these what are called today, quote unquote, fancy lugs. I'm not, I get what it means, but I don't think it's descriptive enough because, the lugs are just, they're so complicated. They're so beautiful. They're flared. I don't even know how to describe them. I don't even know how to describe these lugs, but they're just so incredible. I'm still looking at this watch, and while I've been rambling for the past 5 minutes, I'm speechless looking at it. The dial has wear on it, there's no doubt. This watch is a very old piece. But if you look at this piece, you can't help but to say, wow, this is something special. This is something different. Clearly coming from a divergent mind in the brand, right? Clearly coming from a brand that, had its own vision for what elegance looked like. Right? Think about it, right? Like Cartier, who I love, right? Had their own design, the idea of elegance, right? They had their tanks, which were beautiful watches that I adore, but not nearly as daring as something like this, something that is, so obviously decorated, right? This is totally different. Cartier didn't really get insane until the crash, and this came out decades and decades before that. This watch is probably from the 1930s or 40s, and this watch is probably from the 1940s, I would say. And anyway, this is just such a fabulous piece. I adore it, and it is available in the Theo Harris Watch Shop. And if you're looking for a dress watch, you're not going to do much better than this, particularly at the price point. You have solid pink gold here, and you're just not going to do much better than this. This is just phenomenal. And the last watch I want to talk about is a watch that most of you probably aren't familiar with because it's a watch that never got any attention ever, and then only as of very recently, right, got some write-ups and some press on Instagram because people viewed them as like grossly overlooked. And the brand is Chaumet. And what's so cool about this is it's a brand that is, predominantly known as a jeweler, as a Parisian jeweler. And they had a watch collection on the side, but it was never the point of the brand. That happens all the time, right? I mean, you go into Porsche, and it's obviously a car, right, company, but then they've got their design branch, which used to be really taken very seriously, and now if you go in, it's kind of tchotchke with the Porsche logo on it, right? So usually it's like, stick to what you do best, and everything else is kind of kitschy, right? Not with Chaumet, not at all. This watch is, their whole collection in general is divergent. It's weird, right? It's intelligent. This particular Power Reserve watch, I mean, the proportions are incredible. The case design, which you would call, technically speaking, it would be called a disco volante case design. But even beyond that, I mean, it reminds me of a UFO. It reminds me of a UFO. I mean, if you flip it over to the case back, show me a more beautiful case back from any of the big brands of the era. This watch dates to the 1990s. Who was doing things like this? I mean, this is a wild watch. Original strap as well, and buckle, all 18 karat yellow gold. When I bought this watch, and it's eggshell dial and it's beautiful blue accents and everything, I remember holding it and wearing it and being like, wow, this is the coolest watch ever to wear in Paris. It's cool. It's an incredibly cool watch to wear anywhere, of course. But I know a lot of guys, a lot of watch geeks. You want to wear your Cartier in Paris because it's where it's the whole point, right? It's Cartier. It's Cartier. It's Cartier. You wear it in Paris. You buy a Cartier in Paris. But this watch is, to wear this watch is to signify to everyone or to yourself that you are in the secret Parisian club. Right, you're not just drinking at the bar in Place Vendôme. You know where to go. You know your way around La Marais, right? Like this is not your first time in Paris, And anyway, I absolutely adore this piece. As a Power Reserve watch, it's one of my favorite complications as well. I think the execution is absolutely brilliant. I love the blue. I love the eggshell. I can't believe this watch is from the 1990s. Speaking about going back into the archives, this design is something that Chaumet looked at from other brands of the 1960s, probably, at those disco volante designs of the era by Audemars Piguet and the like, and they said, okay, I love that, let me reinvent it in our language. In the 1990s, not in the 1990s, by the way, is not the era that is most associated with peak watchmaking. It's kind of an era of generally a little bit of a lull, barring maybe Longa and a couple other things, of course. But it wasn't the golden era. It wasn't the golden era of watchmaking. And you have this but you have this Parisian jewelry company that is saying, what if we take our watches really seriously? It kind of reminds me really of the Ralph Lauren Slim Classique, which is one of the most acclaimed watches of the last 20 years, really, by people that are, really in the know. One of the most beautiful designs, period, detailed, powered by a Piaget movement, and the design, is a reference to a vintage Patek Philippe pocket watch, from I don't even know when, 1910s or 20s or something like that. It's crazy. So Ralph Lauren probably saw that pocket watch and said, "Yep, we have to make that." And that's kind of what happened here with Chaumet. So anyway, I absolutely love this, and I love this collection. I love In the Middle. I know people are always saying talk less about Rolex. Well, today we are talking less about Rolex. These three watches I think are infinitely more interesting than a whole world of Rolex that's out there. I love Rolex. I'm wearing a Rolex, God knows. But this is for vintage lovers, and for people that don't love vintage, I hope that I've given you a little bit of a reason today to maybe admire it just a little bit more. So, without any further ado, if you're interested in any of these watches or any of the other watches that we have available, like a Cartier Tank or Patek Philippe Calatrava or Rolex Datejust, head on over to the Theo and Harris Watch Shop today. Take a look, explore. All those watches were found and purchased by me personally. I am the curator of the shop. And if you want to take a look at the straps, go ahead, shoot our office, which is run by my mother at office@theoandharris.com, a message, and she'll help you pick out a strap. And they're handmade all over the world, between Italy, France, and Texas, USA. So we're very proud of it. We're a family business, and I'm glad to come back here and share some of that with you. So go forth, my friends, and enjoy the Theo and Harris shop. That's it.